Hi, this is Illeana Douglas, and you're watching Trailers from Hell. Laura C. Hobson's best-selling novel, Gentleman's Agreement, published in 1947, brought to light prejudices that Jews were experiencing in post-war America. Hobson, whose birth name was Zemetkin, was herself the daughter of Russian Jewish immigrants. Hobson exposed the existence of the then common practice of restrictive covenants or unspoken gentleman agreements designed to preserve the racial homogeneity in the upper class suburbia. The topic of anti Semitism was so sensitive in Hollywood that it took a non Jewish producer, Daryl Zanuck and 20th Century Fox, to purchase the novel and make it into a film with an adapted screenplay by Moss Hart. When Zanuck sent the script to Gregory Peck, a Roman Catholic, offering him the starring role of Phil Green, a journalist who goes undercover, assuming the name Greenberg, to write a story about anti Semitism, Peck's agent urged him to turn it down for fear it would ruin his career. Peck was no stranger to liberal politics. He was vehemently opposed to HUAC, the House Un-American Activities Committee, and their ongoing investigations rooting out supposed communists in Hollywood. One actor the committee targeted was John Garfield, coming off of a star turn in Body and Soul, now cast in the pivotal role of Dave Goldman, a Jewish Army veteran who carries the emotional scars of having to battle discrimination. In 1951, 4 years after his acclaimed performance in Gentleman's Agreement, Garfield would be blacklisted and would die tragically young from a heart attack brought on by the stress from HUAC. Gentleman's Agreement director Elia Kazan made the controversial decision to name names before HUAC's committee, and it saved his career, but he made many enemies doing this, including Gregory Peck. Gentleman's Agreement follows magazine writer Phil Green, a widower with a young son, Tommy. Dean Stockwell. Stockwell gives a remarkably nuanced performance for a child actor here. Now, Phil is working on a story with his magazine editor, John Minifie, Albert Decker, about anti-Semitism. And in the course of the assignment, Phil begins a romantic relationship with Kathy Lacey, played by Dorothy McGuire. He discovers that Kathy and her sister Jane Wyatt, live in an exclusive but restricted neighborhood in Darien, an unwritten covenant prohibiting the real estate sales to Jews. Now, Kathy is vaguely aware that Darien is a restricted neighborhood, but since it's never affected her personally, she doesn't really see the harm in it. Phil tells Kathy he's adopted a Jewish persona of Phil Greenberg to explore anti-Semitism, but he makes her promise that she will keep his real identity a secret while he's writing the story. Kathy agrees with the principles of Phil's story, but then she insists that Phil reveal to her sister that he isn't really Jewish. Phil is appalled, and it makes him realize that the roots of anti-Semitism are much deeper and more complicated than he first thought. He learns that his secretary, Elaine Wales, played by June Havoc, formerly Estelle Wilofsky, changed her name to get hired by the magazine, but she now confides to Phil that its new anti-discrimination policy might allow the wrong kind of Jews to work at the magazine. Phil begins to personalize these kinds of incidents, and he's incensed after Kathy has a crisis of conscience, and she realizes she really does not want to rent her Darien cottage to Dave Goldman because she doesn't want to rock the boat, she says. Phil begins to see that it's supposedly nice people like Kathy that are really the problem. And not only does he feel her not taking a stance against restrictive practices is wrong, but Kathy's defensiveness reveals her own hidden prejudice. The most well-known scene in Gentleman's Agreement comes when Peck, as Phil Greenberg, tries to rent a room at a hotel, and he is turned away when he tells the clerk that he is Jewish. Peck received his second Academy Award nomination as Best Actor for Gentleman's Agreement. This is the film his agent begged him not to do, and scenes like that in the film, the entire film, established him as one of the top 10 box office draws. Peck was at his best playing these noble characters with a strict moral compass, winning an Academy Award for the role he is most closely associated with, Atticus Finch, in To Kill a Mockingbird. Gentleman's Agreement was nominated for 8 Academy Awards, winning 3, including Best Picture, Best Director for Elia Kazan, Best Supporting Actress for Celeste Holm, playing fashion editor Anne Detry, Phil's friend and confidant. Celeste Holm, who I was lucky enough to work with in a little movie called Alchemy, said of Gentleman's Agreement, quote, "I think the reason the picture made such an impression was because the writers had a real sense of responsibility to the audience. They had a point, and that seems to have gone out of style." Daryl Zanuck's bet on a message picture paid off. These days, message pictures are considered as old-fashioned as rocking chairs. But I have to say, the message of Gentleman's Agreement remains relevant. If you see prejudice, fight it. But if you see it in yourself, fight it even harder. It's a powerful film, Gentleman's Agreement.